there's a knowing, a deep knowing of how my words, how my actions, how my life impacts my spouse, and being considerate of that when I engage life.
Yeah. Welcome back, everyone, to Breaking Bread, the podcast brought to you by Apostolic Christian Counseling and Family Services. I'm back in the studio with Kaleb with 3 small things for marriages. Welcome, Kaleb.
It's good to be here, Matt. Thanks.
These, I think, have been very, very helpful. They've been very local, very simple, not grandiose, but yet not necessarily easy.
No, right.
What's the first small thing?
First small thing, Matt, here is highly happy couples find that when they can't resolve conflict before bedtime, they choose to sleep on it. If anger remains in the morning, they don't let it go unresolved. They deal with it.
Okay, so this one's got an interesting, this is talking about being purposeful and dealing with conflict, disagreement.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like it means that you understand the tension of letting things go and then not letting them go too far.
Yes, okay. Well stated.
Do tell, Kaleb, just exactly what that algorithm is.
Well, and even, this reality that sometimes the best way of dealing with conflict can be sleeping on it and getting up in the morning.
Which one might say, well, don't let the sun go down upon your anger, right?
Right.
So maybe unpack a little bit of that larger concept.
Yeah. So what does that exactly mean? Don't let the sun go down upon your wrath, right? If you think about that, Matt, again, does that mean when it's dark out? There's a principle there, right? But when it becomes an absolute in the sense that we have to work this conflict out, when both of us are emotionally exhausted, physically fatigued, and we're talking about a hot topic that's
and I've got
difficult.
half a brain.
And I got half a brain, that's right. It's not functioning even the half that I had.
Yeah.
That's not a helpful, really, then emotion begins to drive the show, and we're just not cognitively able to be able to walk through that in a way that honors each other. Yeah. And so when we move to that environment, so we're saying yes and. Yes, it's helpful to resolve conflict. It's helpful to walk through that as soon as we can. And at times, when it goes on past our bedtime, maybe the best thing we can do is get a good night's rest, get up in the morning and say, you know what? Let's walk through this now, after we've rested.
And if we were to take this up another 10,000 feet and just take the principles, it's not only about bedtime and getting good rest,
right?
But it's knowing when to talk about things.
Yes.
Is that
correct?
Fair to say?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It does take some self-awareness of what are the environmental factors and barriers that are going to impact our engaging and walking through conflict in a negative way. In that case, we're not just moving with the urgency, we have to deal with this now, right? That's not the only message we want to listen to or hear, but to be able to, okay, take a deep breath, step back, and think about this for a second. Is this going to lead to healthy dialogue? Because in the end, that's what we want. We want healthy dialogue. I mean, certainly we want it dealt with, but we want to be understood. And when we're already revved up, we got to get this talked about, resolved before we, get to that potluck or place. We're not in a good state of mind to be present, patient, attentive, in tune with our spouse's feelings. It's like, this is what we're doing, So that does take some self-awareness to say, okay, what's going to put our best foot forward as we think about resolving conflict? Not many people are thinking, wow, I just can't wait to walk through conflict with my spouse. There are some that don't mind, But at the same time, what we're saying is, how do we create an environment where it's conducive to understanding, being in tune with each other to walk through negative emotions?
Right. Because we need to. We're not saying to avoid the conflict.
Right.
That conflict, it does need to happen. But very often we do have, between the spouses, a different skill set when it comes to dealing with conflict. Right?
Yes.
To one, the words flow and the thoughts and the rationale and the
in the midst of that tension,
and they want to dialogue right now. The other one needs time to process, right? Yeah. And it puts them kind of on the losing end of every argument, right?
That's not a good feeling.
It's not a good feeling, right? But it's not. It's their skill set is different.
Yeah.
So it's almost like having a very comprehensive view of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what we're getting at with this one?
Yeah, broader, absolutely. Kind of a broader view and not in this moment, seeing the forest for the trees sort of thing. Yeah.
Almost knowing that, you know what, in this moment, I've got too much of an upper hand with this conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And while it might feel good in the moment, it may win a battle, so to speak, but it loses the war, right? Relationally.
Yeah.
So one other thing that I would say on this is, again, we're saying here, sometimes it's helpful to sleep, right? Sleep on it. Mm-hmm. Having said that, it is a helpful thing, particularly for females. Not always. Sometimes this is for males as well. But let's say Ange and I are in conflict, okay? And it's late at night. We're both exhausted. And I'm thinking, like, let's just table it, okay? If I just turn over and say I'm going to table it without letting her know, we're going to get through this, like this, that we're okay. This temporary conflict, it's frustrating. I wish we could change it. You know, I want to resolve it. Letting her know that I love her and I'm going to come back to that, right? That we're going to get settled. There's a settledness in that. I think that message communicates, I love you, we're okay, I need some time, or it would be helpful for me to sleep on it. Otherwise, you leave your spouse churning on what's going to happen, you know, just going to places.
What did he mean by turning over like that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, left to their own.
What would you say to the spouse who says, hey, listen, if we put this off to the morning, I'm just not going to even see him again, right? I mean, the way our connection is right now. It's now or never.
So I would want to unpack that a little bit, Matt, to understand past experiences of walking through conflict. So meaning, is that just the nature of their schedule? Is it a nature of the way that they approach conflict? And so the urgency of one of the spouses, in this case, perhaps the wife, is like, if we don't talk about it now, it doesn't get talked about, okay? And what is fueling in her that intensity, that desire to do it now? Likely, oftentimes, this has happened a zillion times in the past. We haven't talked about it. And so once and for all, I'm putting my foot down and we're going to do it right now. And from that context, it makes sense, Matt, right?
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. And so I would say, first, I would want to unpack with that couple what is feeding that dynamic, to understand both, you know, in that case, what does it look like for the wife, for the husband's need for some time to kind of quiet, to digest, but also for the husband to connect back, because that's painful.
Yeah.
Just to be left with, doesn't care, doesn't matter, you know, we don't walk through this.
Yeah.
So does that?
Yeah. Again, the responsibility that you're sharing here is for both spouses, right? And so it's for her to process that urgency and the fear that this is going to go like they've always gone.
Yes.
But you're really amping up the responsibility for the other spouse, right? To say, hey, listen, that's the way it usually goes, and that's not good either.
Yeah.
So what's the right answer?
Right.
What does responsibility look like for you and for her?
Yeah.
Right?
So I think in that, being able to communicate clearly. So for her, you know what? I'm really afraid that if we leave it till the morning, that we don't talk about it, that she's able to speak into her fear and say, you know what, this is where this intensity comes from. It's from a deep fear. Yeah. I'm okay with waiting if I know we can talk about it tomorrow night, and that we can prioritize that. Are you able to do that? Yeah. Right? And for him to be able to say, taking a deep breath, because obviously that's intense in the moment, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of emotions going, and say, okay, you know what, this isn't about disengaging. I know, take response. In the past, perhaps I haven't come back to things. I would like to. And it takes intentionality upon agreeing on a time, right? When is that going to be? And then guess what? We make it happen. Yeah. Whether it's tomorrow at, 7:30 or the next day. Because I think that's what helps both spouses say, okay, we're prioritizing.
When you're sharing that, Kaleb, the word that jumped out to me that all of a sudden generated empathy within me was fear. So when you played that scenario out, you made it up, but I'm sure it strikes pretty near to a lot of experiences to say, honey, I'm afraid. Okay, the core of this is I'm afraid. And I'm afraid that we're going to go and not address this, and we're going to slip away here.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't happen tonight, I get it.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that I'm going to be fearful until we have the conversation. I think that really places a huge motivator, right, on the husband to say, or the wife, whichever direction it's going, right, to say, all right, I owe that to you, right? Let's go on to number 2. Number 2 has something to do with being present.
Sure. So this one is highly happy couples treat one another with intentional kindness. They joke and they challenge, but they try to never do it in ways that their mate would perceive as disrespectful or hurtful.
Okay.
So here we have, if you think about joking, being with, treating each other, again, being present with each other, but there's a point in time where that can cross the line.
Yeah.
Okay. One example I think of is just sarcasm. Okay. Yeah. Some couples, they joke with sarcastic jokes, and it connects them. It's wonderful.
And we have all different tolerance levels.
That's right. That's right. And for others, they feel that's not helpful. They
betrayed.
Yeah. It can lead to a deep kind of pain. Or
I think we need to realize as spouses the power that each of us has over our spouses. I don't think there's anybody in the world, Kaleb, I don't think there's anybody in the world who can humiliate me, who can, as much as my wife can. She has the words that she could just drop the atomic bomb on me.
Totally.
And I her.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't do it to you, Kaleb.
It is so true.
But I could, there are words that I could use that would be hugely destructive.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, so traumatic, it would be a marker in her life. I'm just trying to paint just the power that we spouses have for one another.
Absolutely.
Isn't that true?
It is. It makes me think at a recent training, and the trainer mentioned, so this was in the context of marital therapy. As a marital therapist, we have a flashlight, okay, into the heart of each spouses.
Yeah. The
spouses for each other, it's like a stadium floodlight that they shine and the impact that they have on each other.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was really powerful to that point of they can impact in very amazing ways, but also painful. Very painful. Yes.
So we have to walk with awareness.
Right. And we're aware of that when our spouse doesn't feel safe. When the safety in our relationship is damaged, then trust is damaged. And so if I'm not considerate of, let's say Ange doesn't appreciate sarcastic jokes, and that's partly the way I approach life. If I'm not considerate of her and aware of how that can be cutting to her, and I just say, she just needs to get over it.
She's too sensitive.
Exactly. She's too sensitive. That leads to rupturing safety and then has an adverse effect on trust that's built over time in a relationship. And so if that's the case, then her mind goes to, well, what else? She doesn't feel very cherished, right? She doesn't feel cared for. Whereas if I were to say, you know what? If I don't say another sarcastic comment the rest of my life, so be it. I want to cherish her, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that
you know what? There really takes some learning here and some growth.
There's a knowing, the deep knowing, of how my words, how my actions, how my life impacts my spouse, and being considerate of that when I engage life with her and
But
with others.
there is an element in this one about joking and having a good time.
Yeah.
There's something really powerful about smiling and laughing together.
Yeah.
Right?
Laughter, how does it say it? Laughter is
does good as a medicine. Right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, and there is a sense of connecting that comes with laughter is contagious.
Yeah.
Right? You think about that. Joking and having fun, it just knits us
here's
together.
a perfect example, Kaleb. When have you just had, a funny thing happen to you and you just can't wait to tell somebody?
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Because laughter and enjoyment, you want to do that in relationship. Actually I read an article, they were doing some studies on laughter and stuff. They found that women like to laugh more. So there was evidence to the fact that make your woman laugh.
That's interesting.
And they also found that men instigate laughter more than women do,
Huh.
right? So there's your charge, men
Yeah.
out there. Make her laugh, right? Which has incredible therapy, right?
It does.
And in marriage, we have enough to cry about.
Oh, yes.
Okay?
Yes.
There's enough to cry about
Yeah.
that maybe some laughter would do as well.
Totally. I think so.
Kaleb, let's go now to number 3. Be positive.
Be positive. Number 3, when highly happy couples inevitably experience hurt feelings and conflict, they eventually reconnect by mutually sharing a private signal that says, we're okay. So a couple things, Matt, I think with this one. First is the reality that we inevitably experience hurt feelings.
Yes. And conflict.
And conflict in a relationship. And that's normal. That's part of human relationships and interactions that happen. When there's been a disconnect, a conflict, hurt feelings, guess what can happen? It can hang around in our head, right? And run around until we come back and reconnect and are able to
Have some sort of closure.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. It allows us to be able to kind of drop, if you will, those feelings and have that reconnection.
You know what I really like about this one, Kaleb? We can talk and prepare and teach and learn how not to put the car in the ditch. But equally important is learning the skill of getting it out of the ditch.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And this is
sure.
that one. But what I'm catching here is there's 2 things. Connection is required to get the car out of the ditch, as well as this symbol thing. So I want you to go to this symbol thing.
Yeah.
There is a sign or a symbol that a couple has. Am I hearing this right?
Yeah.
That says we're okay.
Right. Yeah, what they found was in these highly happy couples, they share this ability on reconnect that says, you know what, we're good. Things are okay. You know what, we're all right here. We can kind of let that go. And sometimes it can be an actual facial expression or signal, but there's an awareness. We're all right. We're in tune here.
Yeah.
The important thing is here, doesn't mean that we have a sit down, talk this out.
Yes.
It's like, no, we've both dropped it. We're good.
Yeah.
We're not avoiding.
Yeah.
That's not avoidance.
Yeah. And maybe we're not in agreement.
Right?
It doesn't mean agreement.
No, not necessarily.
It just means we're going to be okay.
Yeah, right? I think so.
What's an example of a symbol?
I think the important thing is, as couples, when we're living together, we get to know each other. There is this sense that you start to share certain interactions. It's just between the two of you. Yeah. Another individual would have no clue that's what that means, right? That we're okay.
Yeah.
But you get this sense.
Maybe it could be a side hug squeeze or even a hand gesture or something, right?
Yeah.
That would indicate, I remember and I know and I'm confident.
And we're going to get through this.
That we're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's inspiring.
And I see you. Yeah.
Thanks, Kaleb. 3 small things, 2 of which had to do with conflict. One is sometimes sleeping on conflict is a good idea to clear our minds. But the other one is that closure, not necessarily closure so much, but connection, saying we're going to be okay with the conflict. And then this middle one that we talked about in terms of knowing when and how to joke, finding that appropriate place that honors your spouse, right?
Yeah.
And this knowledge
Yeah.
of knowing that is so incredibly good. And lots of us husbands right now can remember that ride home when we learned that lesson. Note to self.
Yeah.
Or maybe we didn't learn that lesson, but anyway,
right.
thanks a lot for being here. Thanks everyone for being along and listening in. We trust that this has been helpful.